Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. It is Monday, June 19th. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, got some rest, got in some you time, whatever that looked like. My name is Alan. I want to welcome you to my Spiritual Growth Through Recovery podcast. The purpose of these videos is to grow my spirituality by following the AA program of recovery. I try to do that by being honest and as vulnerable and as accountable as I can be, which is why I make these videos. Makes me put some work in. I really enjoy doing these. I really am. I'm no expert in AA or spirituality or recovery. I'm just trying to live life on life's terms and do it sober. The recipe we follow here is we read the daily reading, the daily reflections book. There's a link in the description if you would like to follow along. I'll just share my take on the reading as well as some other topic. All right. So here we go, Monday. So the topic for today is AA Regeneration. And we're going to talk about my research into the spiritual experience, part 1 today. Okay. So June 19th. AA Regeneration. Such is the paradox of AA Regeneration. Strength arising out of complete defeat and weakness. The loss of one's old life as a condition for finding a new one. AA Comes of Age, page 46. 1,000 Beatings by John Barleycorn did not encourage me to admit defeat. I believed it was my moral obligation to conquer my enemy friend. At my first AA meeting, I was blessed with the feeling it was all right to admit defeat to a disease which had nothing to do with my moral fiber. I knew instinctively that I was in the presence of a great love when I entered the doors of AA. With no effort on my part, I became aware that to love myself was good and right, as God had intended. My feelings set me free where my thoughts had held me bondage. I am grateful. So the idea of regeneration, dying, so kind of like the idea of being reborn. Your old self dies so a new one can rise. And I think part of that is unless the old one gets out of the way, the other one can't grow and can't work its way through. So it kind of talks about so the whole paradox. So regeneration means to regrow or bring something into renewed existence, generate again. Right? Similar to reborn, it implies needing something to die. What needs to die? Our old life, thinking, and actions. So we talked about the feeling it was okay to admit defeat. I can't remember. Ever feeling like it was okay to show weakness and defeat. I mean, that was never okay. And I come into the rooms and humility and vulnerability, and I don't care anymore. And that's a very freeing thing. It really is very freeing. I think part of it, because I could never be honest and vulnerable, I tend to seek relationships that I perceived at a lower status. So I always found some reason to feel better than them. So we talked about the great love when entering the doors of AA. The first place I ever felt it. I remember going to AA when I was 18 and a bunch of all like 60-year-olds, and that wasn't going to work. But when, I'm in close to 30 and then I got to Wichita, it worked, it fit. A lot of people you could relate to, a lot more people in the rooms as well. So, I didn't understand. My feelings set me free where my thoughts had held me in bondage. I am grateful. I think it's because you're sharing your feelings, then I know for me, when I'm working, struggling with something, if I just talk about it, share it, it loses its power. It's gone. And I don't know if that's what that means. I wasn't sure what that meant. So anyway, all right. So I want to talk about the idea of spiritual experience. So my word of the year is spirituality, and that means be working on in here, and as well as trying to develop more of a higher power. So, what does AA say about the spiritual experience? Right. So I went through the book and I found as many references to that as possible. Spiritual experience or psychic change. And then I said, okay, well, if this is what it is, how do I get it, right? So the first one is in There's a Solution, page 25. It talked about the great fact is just this, and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experience which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe. We have the experience, and then all this stuff happens. We have a different perspective on things. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for which we never do by ourselves. That belief that we've allowed that higher power to come work in us. So the next one was in More About Alcoholism, page 44. To one who feels he's an atheist or agnostic, such an experience seems impossible. But to continue as he is means disaster, especially if he is an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. To be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. Yeah, I feel like that's exactly where I'm at. Either I embrace this higher power idea, or I'm going to go down the addictive spiral. And so then the last reference is in Appendix 2, which I think it references 3 times. The terms spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which, upon careful reading, shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. So when I read, this is my interpretation, right? So we have an experience that changes our perspective of it. So that's one thing. And the other part we talked about is the awareness of a higher power is the essence of spiritual experience, called God consciousness. So that being aware that, hey, there is one and I can rely on it. That's, a spiritual experience. So that's the way I'm interpreting that. So why is this important? So we talked about in Doctor's Opinion how men and women drink because they like the feeling produced. At some point, we cannot differentiate the true from the false. The alcoholic life is the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks. And it talks about, so you're miserable, but you drink again, right? And it talks about having succumbed to the desire again, then the craving kicks in. And we pass through the well-known stages of spree, emergent remorse, and a firm resolution to not drink again. This is repeated over and over unless this person can experience an entire psychic change. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. We have to do something, we have to work into something, believe something to have something come up upon us, and that's just this connection with the higher power. So, on the other hand, and strange as it may seem to those who do not understand it, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, suddenly finds himself easily to control his desire for alcohol. Get the spiritual experience, cravings go away. So that's the importance of it. So the last thing here talks about in Appendix 2 is what often takes place in a few months could seldom be accomplished by years of self-discipline. With few exceptions, our members find that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource. We've got something to rely on. So that's what's important. So I hope that made some sense. I really enjoyed digging into this, figuring out where it's referenced in the book and what does it mean? What does it mean to me? So I hope you got something out of that. So anyway, I hope your start of the week is good. Just want to encourage you to evaluate where your belief in higher power is, and do you have a part of your own life that you're not willing to get rid of, and that's preventing you from growing in some other area of your life? If so, it might be worth looking at. Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow for another video. So until then, peace out.